Welcome to the OBR Streaming Network. This is a Friday edition of Things I Think I Know with the always fabulous and fantastic Jack Duffin. Follow him at Jack Duffin. What's going on, Jack? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I was up at silly o'clock last night. I nearly rolled into your show yesterday just to a bit of trolling, as I sometimes do. I regularly just pop up in the comments section. 5 minutes,
Yes.
And I'm like, hey, yeah, I need to go to bed now.
Time to go to bed now. Up at silly o'clock. I love that. That's hilarious. All right. All things are good. Your newborn, healthy, happy. How's it going?
3 months out, so we're getting there. It's due like a week after the Browns play in London, which is less than ideal. So that whole thing will play out as it plays out.
Oh my gosh, man. 3 months now. Happy for you, brother. Good stuff. Congratulations. And we'll be rooting for you every step of the way as Jack Duffin enters fatherhood, real fatherhood, right? So
we can't rule out the number one child.
I know.
The French bulldog.
I know.
He comes
the
first.
Dog, yes, comes first. All right, gotcha. Priorities, right? All right. So we got our news that you've been talking about for some time now. You know, I mean, we didn't want to call it a surprise or anything because you've been saying this is going to happen with Ogbonnia Okoronkwo yesterday. So I found it only fitting to have you on to talk a little bit about that and all, some other surrounding positions that are still in play to see movement on this roster as we approach what is now we know going to be spring training. Everybody there getting there on July 22nd. So not that far off now. 4 weeks or so, right? Less than that, maybe even. Overall, when they signed Okaranquo, he was viewed very much as an ascending player. He got 4.5 sacks in 23, and didn't have a very good 24. He didn't ascend as projected. Remember when he was signed, it was like widely renowned as a great signing around the NFL, right? He appeared in 30 games in 2 seasons, recorded 52 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. You know what his pressure rate was when he was with the Browns?
When he was with the Browns, that first season, 33 pressures in 287 snaps.
Okay.
Even better that year with Houston, 36 pressures, 268 snaps. He was brilliant, and it was one that I think it was why the season was still going on in Houston. I just turned to every time he did something good, just tweeting his agent and being like, "Come on, tell me he's going to sign for the Browns." Even 6 months out, I was like, "That's the guy I want." And for everyone the Browns signed during the time I followed the team, that's the signing I'm most excited about. Not because I thought he was going to have the biggest impact, but it was such an obvious good move.
Man, free agency is really tough around the NFL, isn't it? It's like so many of these free agent signings, Jack, they don't work out like you envision, right? Like not just for the Browns, but just across the NFL as a whole. It's really hard to get a quality free agent signing that lasts beyond the one contract even.
The vast majority of free agents are released after year 2. Well, within the first 2 years. And that's very much, they're sticking plasters. You've got to find the real long-term talent through the draft. Free agency is like, hey, this position didn't work out. If you draft a left tackle and they end up not being good enough, hey, let's go to free agency, find someone for a couple of years, and then we'll go back to the draft 1 year down the line, ready to move that guy on. So it's one that you can't. The Jags tried to do it a couple of years ago, build the team through free agency. It's a disaster because the best players aren't making it to free agency. They're more your role players, your depth players. Andrew Berry a couple of years ago did a really good job of signing lots of sort of veteran minimum guys. So rather than some rookie was going out there, it was Rodney McLeod. And it was bits like that, which these guys are not going to be the difference between a Super Bowl season and not. They're the guys that just give you the extra 1-2 wins across a whole season where tight games you think it's luck, but it's actually sort of veterans stepping up. And when there's an injury, you're not going to a UDFA, you're going to a guy that really knows what he's doing.
So I guess my question around Okaranquo at this point, they saved $6 million.
$6 million.
Right? Okay. They saved $6 million. Do you think they tried at all to restructure with him, or do you think this was just like, we know they used Thornhill and Tomlinson for the designated post June 1st, so any other post June 1st signings have to happen in real time to benefit the team financially. So we knew that it was going to have to wait. I think he has an option bonus in like late August or something like that, right? So they really could have waited a little bit longer, but it helps the player to let him go now. He can catch on someplace else. My question is just, though, like, he still appears to be a useful piece. So where are you at with that? Just, did you think they ever contemplated like trying to get him to take a pay cut in exchange for a little bit of guaranteed money, or is he was never in that situation, you don't think?
I think if that would have happened, it would have happened before they signed Joe Tryon, because he seems very much like that's that edge 3 you bring in, very much more focused on your pass rush. And if we look through the Andrew Berry era at the edges that he signed in that kind of edge 3 reign, we've had Claiborne, we've had McKinley, we've had Winovich was the only year it was cheap, and then we've had 2 years of Okoronkwo. We're probably going to have Joe Tryon this year. So they're willing to throw that sort of 3, 4, 5 mil at a guy that can just be that pass rushing piece that comes in. They've spent on the top 2, but that number 3 is someone that just, they get to the pressure. And when they signed Joe Tryon, the writing was already on the wall for Okaranquo. It just made it feel like, hey, there's a 90% chance he's gone. There's always things that can change. Hey, if Alex Wright or someone gets injured in OTAs, maybe he's still here. These things always subject to incidents.
Yeah, maybe why they waited through OTAs, right? Could be to see how things looked and so forth. So your room right now looks like at edge, Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright. They've paved the way similarly to like at safety and some other positions for younger guys to step up and take a role, which you want that to happen. Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, and of course, Myles Garrett. They have Aiden Huntington, who's an intriguing UDFA. Now, you have some thoughts on, you don't think they're done necessarily at this position. Talk a little bit about that.
So if we look at all the past years, they have invested in their edge 2. They've got someone that they think's really, really good. We had Vernon, which it was a deal held over from Dorsey. It wasn't one that Andrew Berry went out and did. But then we had 2 years of Clowney, 2 years of Smith, always on like 1-year deals. But it was like they've invested there because they really want to get the pressure on the quarterback sustainably and all the time. Is Isaiah McGuire there? Isaiah McGuire is pretty awesome. And they could just turn around and go, look, he's still on a rookie deal. We're going to extend him at the end of this season. It's probably the article that I'll write Saturday or Sunday around what that could look like in a year's time. And maybe they view him as he's already that good. He's going to be the Robin to Myles Garrett's Batman for the next 3 to 4 years. Then you've got Joe Tryon as the number 3. And then as number 4, maybe you're saying Alex Wright, you're going to be there. Probably going to end up taking a pay cut on that 3.4 million, because if you're an edge that's going to play maybe 25% of snaps, he had one of the worst pressure rates in the NFL for edges last year. So it's not
really.
Yeah, I think he's, because he only played 61 pass rushing snaps, but he's something like 130th out of 140. So shockingly low. Is it one that they go, actually, that weren't really his fault, he can bounce back? And maybe it is one where they're trying to give him a bit of time and go, look, can he improve and be the player that we thought we were drafting? And if not, they can turn to free agency, because there is still several edge names, not ones that are going to be amazing, but guys that can come in and start and do a really, really good job.
Yeah, because it struck me as, like, I look at that room, and my first question was, and it wasn't even posed by me. I think Ashley Bastock of Cleveland.com wrote about this, but like she was posing it as that there's a competition between McGuire and Wright, but you don't think that's really a thing, right?
No, three guys are completely locked in: Garrett, McGuire, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. What just phenomenal name! That belongs in like the Hall of Fame names there, because I love it.
Yeah, but we go to we're calling him JTS on All Eyes on Cleveland now. Casey's done trying to say his name.
I just go Joe Tryon. I'm not. I don't dare ruin his name. The Alex Wright is battling against free agents, and you've got some real names out there. You've got Matt Judon, Zadarius Smith. I don't think Clowney's coming back, but you've got Preston Smith. You've got Jihad Ward. Some lesser names in there, but Von Miller's out there as well that you could bring in and go, hey, let's battle it out with Wright and work out what we're doing. But there's guys that can do a job. So I think the question there is, would I rather have Zadarius Smith on a 1-year deal or Alex Wright on a 1-year deal? For me, that's not even a close discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, because, we're at the point with Alex Wright where he's in his final season of his rookie deal. So it's not even like, you can't project him out any further, right? Unless you're going to extend him. So
it's not about Alex Wright's development. It's what he's going to do week one. And if he's not going to deliver that week one, because if Isaiah McGuire plays really well and Alex Wright has a breakout, you're not signing both. And you're probably going with Isaiah McGuire because he's better and he's younger. And it's one that I don't see a route that Alex Wright's probably here beyond this season. So I don't look at him as some young ascending player. I'm going, what are you doing for me in 2025? And I don't think anyone with a straight face can tell me he's going to have a better season than Zadarius Smith, unless Zadarius Smith gets injured or something.
Interesting. So you think that's in play still, which makes sense to me, because my whole question with, Okaranquo getting cut was like, what if somebody gets hurt? Right? I mean, like, where is your depth at this position? Is it going to be Julian Okwara? Is it going to be Huntington? Like, I don't, on the practice squad, I don't know. You know what I mean? Probably, right, at this point.
I'm with you. And like the standard sort of Andrew Berry style is, hey, if we're going to need 5 players on the roster, let's have 6 guys that are happy being on the team. And you've got a nice battle for that 5th edge spot, which is a game day inactive. You're paying close to the minimum to but you've got Okwara, you've got Thomas, you've got Huntington. Allow the 3 of them to battle it out. But if you told me any of those guys are playing 25% of snaps week 1, I'm not cool with that.
Not ideal. Yeah, exactly. You mentioned this list. I see Jerry Hughes on here. He's always been a favorite of yours, but he is now almost 37 years old, right? So
he's older than my dad.
Yeah. DeMarcus Walker from Chicago. No, obviously Clowney's not coming back. You mentioned Zadarius Smith 7 times. Preston Smith. This is, of course, an intriguing name. All these guys over 30 years old. Matt Judon, Von Miller. You're looking for a mercenary, right?
Yeah. Come in, do a job for a year. And it just gives you that security that if Isaiah McGuire is as good as he was last year, you might even sign as Zadarius Smith, and Zadarius Smith's just splitting snaps as an edge 2 because he might not outplay him, but give me more security and peace of mind. Because if Isaiah McGuire regresses a bit after a really, really good season last year, you're sat there going, oh, we've invested in the D tackle room, and the D tackle room is looking really strong. And then you're like, yeah,
Absolutely.
But the edges have now dropped.
Yeah. What do you think about a guy like Carl Lawson?
I think he's in that discussion if Okwara, Huntington, and Thomas aren't doing it. Carl Lawson's been a player that I thought would be really, really good for that spot. And he's always been on my list the last few years. But more your game day inactive and a bit of security there rather than the starters. But while there's still names out there, you don't need to worry as the Browns. Give Alex Wright the time to prove that can he be the guy? Because if you had signed as Zadarius Smith in free agency when it all kicked off, the door's already closed for an Alex Wright. The door's closed for an Okaranquo. So it's that balance of the two. that you can't do it too quickly, because if you do it too quickly, then you're saying, hey, yeah, training camp OTAs are important, but we've already filled our 5 edge defenders, so you just hear if someone gets injured.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes me feel better because, just rolling with those 4 is a little scary if there's an injury, right? So I think I'm with you. I would love to see them bring in another player, even if it's on the front end or back end. If you think McGuire's good enough to be your A guy, great. Or if you think it's more of like a Lawson who can be your game day inactive, your 5th edge, great too. Because, I don't necessarily, to your point, want to give 25% of the snaps at edge to, Cam Smith or somebody like that, right? Cameron Smith or even Huntington, unless he explodes onto the scene and is, in camp or something, right? And really earns it. So, well said and well pointed out. All right. Where do you think Okaranquo ends up? Any thoughts on that? Inside the AFC North?
I could see him potentially going to like a really decent team who needs that 3rd edge. And it might be the one that he doesn't rush. He might look for the injury opportunity, but at the same time, if someone offers him, I'm sure he'll move pretty quick. But you could easily see a team go at him and go, look, this guy gets pressure, just bring him in. And while last year was a down year, it wasn't as bad as people think. So I think someone will sign him. Someone might say, look, we're going to bring your snap down a little bit, because he did ramp up those amount of snaps, because when they moved on from Smith, it wasn't Isaiah McGuire that stepped up. It was Okoronkwo to begin with, and then they kind of transitioned it. So It's one that I could, if you bring him in as your 3rd edge, you've got a really, really nice room there.
Yeah. Which, I guess kind of brings me back to my original point. Maybe they should have just tried to get him to take a pay cut. You know what I mean? And but
if you do
I get
that
your
though,
point.
then you're ruling out bringing in a Zadarius Smith or someone else. So
an A player. Yeah, I get your. Yeah, then you're bringing in your Batman if it's not McGuire. I think that they think that McGuire is that guy. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, another body there, regardless, I think would behoove them. All right, you're watching Things I Think I Know with the always fantastic Jack Duffin, resident capologist at the OBR. All right. Looking to some other positions, you brought up when we were talking off the air, tight end. So it's really interesting now. So you've got Njoku in a contract year. Let's start there with this question. You fully expect him to be extended?
I don't fully expect, but I'm putting that in that sort of 66% range where I think that'll happen by the time we get to week 1, that they'll just lock him up.
Oh, yeah. You think it'll be done by the time the season starts? Probably 66%.
End of July, probably. I can certainly see it in that gap.
Okay. Perfect. Love to hear that. Okay. And then, of course, Fannin, who is all the rage. Everybody wants to see him. Brown should be using him as a weapon. When you look at their wide receiver room, you're probably going to need to use him as a weapon more. Him or Njoku split out at times. I expect to see more 12, 13 personnel this year as we kind of veer back into Stefanski, full Stefanski, I like to call it. So instead of, it's not full Dorst anymore. It's full Stefanski now. But yeah. So the question then for you, what you brought up to me is interesting. And how does the 3rd tight end or who makes this team, you expect him to carry 3, I take it. How does that impact Fannin's role and how they use any of these guys? So what do you expect to happen to tight end? I mean, on the roster right now, I call him Whitebeard, but his actual name is Blake Whiteheart. And then Brendan Bates, and then they signed Sal Cannella from the XFL. So that's where we're at there.
If he hasn't got like sunglasses and a mullet, I'll be disappointed.
Yes.
It just sounds
he does
like
have
such
long
cool
hair. He does have long hair. I know that.
So for me, tight end 3 and what they do there is fascinating for what it means for Fanning. And the reason for that is if you're going, we really want to play plenty of 2 tight end and really put that into the playbook, you have to invest in tight end 3. So if they roll into the season with a Whitehart, a Bates, someone else that's of that kind of like, do they even belong on a 53 kind of discussion?
Yeah.
That's a sign that they're not embracing Fanning to a massive level. Yes, they could use him just as a big slot, and it's not he's out there as a tight end. He's just, hey, you're effectively a backup slot receiver, which could be the route they go. But it's not one where they're going, hey, it's a lot of 2 tight ends, because if you're failing to invest in the 3, it just shows that you're not going to throw out that third of the playbook that involves 2 tight ends and needs that, because if Njoku goes down mid-game or goes down for several weeks, you're not throwing Blake Whitehart out there and going, oh, it'll be exactly the same. Whereas if they bring in an Akins, that's telling me it's like, hey, they really want 2 out there quite regularly, because if Akins is coming in as a tight end 3, he's probably going to get some snaps. And it's one that if Njoku went down, Akins and Fanning can potentially still do a job. So that's going to be really interesting. There is still a complete wild card that they could keep 2 tight ends. They did it last year. I think it was a few weeks into the season where they changed a bit of course. But it's one that it is in play. I'd probably put it around a 20% chance they only keep 2. Everything's trending towards a 3 tight end. But at the same time, the longer they go with no one else added to this room of note, and if it's just 2 guys, you've got to be thinking, would you rather keep an extra offensive lineman, something like that, than keep Whitehart, keep a Bates on the 53-man roster?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because if they are going full Stefanski, you would think they want a third guy there that you, to your point, very perfectly said, you don't have to throw out a quarter of your playbook if there's an injury, right? And you can still be who you want to be on offense, despite, one of these guys getting either Fanning getting injured or whatever it is, you know what I mean? For a couple games, you can still deploy the same looks. I think that's a really good point. Any other names besides Akins that I know you wanted to trade for Pitts earlier on in the offseason, but I think after Fanning that boat kind of sailed. But where are you at with? Is there any other names that intrigue you?
I've always liked Michael Pruitt. Has always been a name that caught my eye. Mm-hmm. There's some other ones, but I can't say I'm overwhelmed. But there's certainly people out there that I think could do a better job than what we've got. But at the same time, if they think they've seen a little bit from Bates, seen a little bit from Whitehart, give them the shot, allow them to see if they can prove something in camp, and then you move on. Because the minute you signed Akins, it's game over. You can't then go, because a Whitebeard's not going to... Whitebeard, you've done it to me. A Whitehart is not going to get the opportunity to prove he could make the roster, that effectively you're closing that door and saying the best you can do is a practice squad. So it's one that allow these guys to prove it, and if they can't during training camp, bring someone in. And it might happen that you get to a couple of days before training camp and there's 3 or 4 little signings they make that they're not going to move the needle, but it's just a sign that the other guys didn't quite do it in OTAs.
Yeah, I kind of fully expect there to be, if they don't make flat out free agent signings, you know what I mean, between now and then, I fully expect that at cut downs, or as we see teams cut down, there could be some players added here that make the roster better from like 45 to 53. You know what I mean? Is that
We've
fair?
got the number 2 waiver claim too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wide receiver especially, which is a good transition here. When you go to wide receiver, I've talked a lot about the surplus of talent in Green Bay, in New England, in Indy potentially. There's just some teams that have like one or two too many guys that it's like, hey, if they decide to part ways with a Jalen Polk or a Javon Baker in New England, or if they had, they would probably try to trade him first, which is where we're at, right? It may come down to that. And in Green Bay, especially, I mean, they got like 8 guys that, are, playable wide receivers. I don't feel like we have 4 or 5 guys that are playable at this point. So, like, it's playable as a stretch, but you get my point. You could upgrade maybe with a trade. Do you think that they look to do that? I know you've mentioned Keenan Allen in the past. Are you still on that potentially?
I would be up for it, but at the same time, I can certainly see if we get to sort of first 6 weeks of the season, Joe Flacco's quarterback, I can see people raving about the Browns wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Which is very contrarian to a lot of other people, but Jerry Jeudy's played really well. We saw a small sample size with Tillman, and when he had a Winston there, which there's so many similarities between a Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco, that can he unlock him to the same extent? And if Deontay Johnson is anything from the 3 previous years to last year, you're talking about around a league average. If you're looking at all 3 as a trio, you're looking around a league average wide receiver room, which is nuts to say. It doesn't have the star power. You're probably looking at more at 3 like wide receiver 2s, as people would call them. But that is 3 dangerous people to look after, which if you've got a quarterback like Joe Flacco, you can, having 3 really good guys, and you can almost throw in Joker in there of 4 like high quality receivers, not elite, but high quality. That should unlock. And the fact that Stefanski's play calling over his time's been really, really good. He gets guys open.
Yeah.
It relies on it not just to be a freak sort of 3-4 game run from Cedric Tillman, and it relies on Deontay Johnson keeping his head together, which is never ideal. But if that comes together, I think when you start grading them, if you're looking at something like PFF or something sort of halfway through the season, 6 weeks in, there is a very real chance that you're talking about it as a middle of the league wide receiver room. Not quite matching your Bengals with their star power. They've got the 2 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL this year in terms of cash because the way they do deals. But I think it will surprise people. But then at the same time, Keenan Allen's out there. If Deontay Johnson does something stupid, fingers crossed, the first call should be to get rid of Deontay Johnson. The second call, ring Keenan Allen, go, hey, let's come back. Amari Cooper, let's come back. And let's get someone like that around the table.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if he does, check out mentally again, as he described it on his podcast, Deontay, that makes sense. You would look to free agency. I would be looking to maybe ring up some of those other teams, because the thing that I look at, Jack, and I don't know if you agree with this, but like, I would prefer to not bring in, if I had my choice, I would prefer to not bring in a 30-year-old wide receiver and rather bring in a Javon Baker or somebody like that who has upside, so that if we're giving snaps to guys, we're giving snaps to guys that can ascend and be part of this more than just 1 year.
Yeah, certainly. If you can find someone that can be a longer term answer, you want to do it. But you need to get more talent in there, because quite frankly, you've got 1 great player in Jerry Jeudy. You've got 2 question marks in Cedric Tillman, just because I've only seen such a small sample of it. If you look at like his first half of the season, what was it? It was like 3 catches for 16 yards or something ridiculous. It was tiny, basically, what he produced.
Deshaun Watson was passing.
Yeah. But Jerry Jeudy was doing okay with Deshaun Watson's passing. So, and like when Amari Cooper went, it opened up a bit more for him. You've got Deontay Johnson that is his own worst enemy half the time. But then after that, Jamari Thrash, I think he had 3 catches for next to nothing last year. Out there for a lot of snaps, didn't get the targets and didn't do anything with them. So he could turn out to be good, but at the same time, if I need him to step in because Deontay Johnson has a meltdown mid-game, do I feel good about that? Him playing 60+% of the snaps? No. And no one else in the room. So I think they need another body in there. Just someone with a bit of experience. But as you said, if they can swing a trade, do it. But this back to sort of the common theme. Let's not shut the door on Thrash now.
Yeah.
Give him training camp. And if a couple of weeks in, they're like, look, this guy could be a wide receiver 5 for us for the year, fine. Let's go out and add someone.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, you're looking at this, and I think it's right to do that at these positions as though there's no need to do something tomorrow. Give these guys a shot. They very well could go earn it. Thrash could go look amazing in camp and make you feel a lot better. Deontay Johnson could. I mean, if everything broke right, you could have a very talented Tillman. Tillman, you get the best out of Tillman, or that 3-game, breakout becomes who he is, sort of. And Jerry Jeudy replicates what he did last year, or even better. And then you have Deontay Johnson, who, carves out a nice role for himself and has his head on straight. Suddenly things are looking 100 times better, right? To your point. Jamari Thrash, plays well in camp and solidifies your depth. Now we're talking about a different room, and having a Mike Woods at wide receiver 5 or whoever it is isn't so bad anymore. So I think you make a good point there. There's a lot of ifs there is the problem. So you got to kind of see how this plays out and then, move accordingly. And I think that's smart. Okay. So that's where you're at with wide receiver. Now, a lot of people, let's go to cornerback real quick. Martin Emerson, looking for a bounce back year from him in a contract year. It's a huge year for him. Now, he's been really good, excellent, 2 out of the 3 years. There is some question about his scheme fit with a heavier man-to-man defense coordinator like Schwartz, right? Like, I think, when Joe Woods was here and he was in zone, he kind of fits that cover 3, long, lanky, zone corner that you like. Then he played really well, though, in 23 under Schwartz. So it was just last year that he really seemed to struggle. And it was really peculiar because he looked so great in training camp when he was shutting down Justin Jefferson and joint practices and all that. So he's going to really make or break a year. And then you've got Newsome, who's, wildly overpaid at this point on his 5th-year option. But I think you're just kind of stuck there with him because of the games that Ward misses and the versatility that Newsome brings to be able to go outside. As far as moving beyond this season, because I don't think there's a lot of changes coming I think they're set, right? Pretty much this season, right?
Yeah.
Beyond this season, if Emerson plays well, does he earn an extension? If Newsome plays really well, can he earn an extension? Is it possible they both get extended, or is there like one extension out there to be had between the two of them, you feel like?
I reckon it's realistically one.
Yeah.
But with the outcome that, look, we don't know the long-term future of Denzel Ward. And it's one that if he plays like he's capable of, he is an absolute bargain. He's on due 14 million this year, 20 million the year after, and 20.5 million in 2027. And that is cheap for what he can produce. Yes. Obviously, there's always going to be the question, and it's one that I don't see them doing an early extension. They'll run that all the way through, and then if going into the 2027 season, they're like, hey, we want to keep you around. Right, let's put a couple of years of guarantees in here, a year or two of team option, and let's go. So it's one that you want that security. So I think it's pretty much a head-to-head between Newsome and Emerson to go and earn it. Ideally, Cameron Mitchell would have probably shown something in his last 2 years. For me, he's not done that. I really wanted him to seize on that role, because if he was in a spot where he's like, hey, this guy's going to be a slot corner or something, you're having a conversation on moving off of one of them this year, because you could say, hey, we'll step him up. Newsom will go on the boundary. We're there. But the depth's not come through. And look, it's probably the hardest position up there with quarterback as well to go and scout is your DBs. So keep swinging, find the solution. But I think you run it back. Emerson, Newsom, one of those guys gets extended. One goes into free agency, and then they'll bring in sort of a cheaper veteran. You've got the likes of Mike Hilton out there still as a free agent. No doubt you'll be a free agent in a year's time, which you can go, look, whoever they sign is probably going to go and play on the boundary. So it's one that if it's Newsom, if it's Emerson, probably as a boundary corner. And if not, there's always guys in free agency. They can go and pay one of them. Then find a cheaper free agent in the slot, draft someone next year. And that could be one where they're drafting someone pretty high, where the first couple of rounds, even though they've got 3 people locked in, they draft high and they go, look, this guy could be the replacement for Denzel Ward long term because maybe he doesn't extend after 27. Could be the replacement for someone else, but go and invest maybe a second round pick.
Is playing that out till 27 because of his concussion status and just kind of unknown?
Usually you wouldn't extend a player until they're going into their final year. You kind of make a few exceptions. If it's a quarterback, you want to get that locked in early. If it's kind of an MVP discussion player, so Myles Garrett, perfect example. If you had a star wide receiver who's like one of the best players in the league, you have that discussion. Whereas anyone else, you're like, look, when you enter 1 year left, we'll sit down, we'll get this done. You'll never play on just 1 year. So any player that goes into 1 year is probably because there's concerns Delpit hadn't broken out or Conklin had injury concerns. So it's one that you've got to balance it up. But if someone's like, we definitely want this player, just lock them up.
I always just wonder because he is such a bargain, right? Like if he plays like he did last year where he was elite, you know what I mean? Does he go back to the table like, hey, I'm underpaid according to the market? Probably not. You don't foresee anything like that.
No, I'm not too worried. The cornerback market's just not traveled as fast as it should. It started waking up a bit more with sort of Stingley and a few others, but it's one that 30. He won't be able to come around the table and demand something, and they'll probably say to him, "Look, let's do 2025, do 2026. We'll extend you. We'll put 2 years of guarantees in your contract. You'll know you're safe." And then that's what guarantees in 27, guarantees in 28, and then 29 and 30 are team options. If they want to walk away at any point, they walk away. So if you look at the highest paid corners, it's just coming up for me. So Denzel Ward's deal was signed in 2022 at 20.1 million. Since then, we've had 3. No one crossed that until, Jair Alexander, I think, was slightly after at 21 million. But you've got AJ Terrell in 2024 at 20.25. Patrick Surtain was 24. Jalen Ramsey was 24.1. JC Horn at 25. And Derek Stingley jumped it to 30 million this year. So it's one that he's still the 6th highest paid corner in the league. So he's not doing badly.
That's better than I thought. You know, the Stingley 30 number made me kind of like, whoa. But you're right. If you look at everything in between, it hasn't been that much. So that's a good point. All right, you're watching Things I Think I Know on the OBR Streaming Network. Hit that like button. See what it does. See if anything crazy happens. Just give it a little poke and hit subscribe as we push towards 10,000 subscribers. All right, we're going to finish up with Jack Duffin here. The great Jack Duffin. Your time is precious, and we appreciate you being with us. A lot of people talking about the quarterback position. Obviously, we got to just touch on it real quickly. 4 quarterbacks, is that feasible? Carrying 4 into the season?
It's slightly possible. I would put it at less than a 5% chance because never say never to anything. And it's one that I'm not talking about what happened last year where people go, they kept 4 quarterbacks last year. I'm like, you feel like 3 days after the initial 53-man roster. Let's focus on week 1 rosters. But I don't see it. I think the earliest they can decide 2 questions. Flacco or Pickett. Yeah, who knows? If a rookie plays well, then fine. But Flacco or Pickett, who's better and who do they want to probably start? And then are they okay if one of the rookies steps up? And that could be something that 1 week into training camp, they're like, yeah, we know this is what it's going to be. And if that's the stage, move on. Send him to the Saints. I genuinely believe that's where Kenny Pickett will land, just because they've got nothing.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that. And that's where his old coach is. So that would make a lot of sense. So, yeah. So, yeah, that makes sense. I think, one veteran, 2 rookies makes the most sense by week 1, right? One of the you'll have to carry all 3. One of them will have to be inactive on game day, but hopefully Flacco and the 2 rooks is what we end up with. That's what I'm hoping for.
We'll be okay because Mary Kay will ask every single week which one of the 2 rookies is going to be inactive. So we'll never be out the loop.
Yeah, and he will never answer until we'll never know until game day. So he will not answer that question. I promise you. All right. Restructures, carryover cap. Where are they at with this? Anything we should be expecting? Like the strategy with Andrew Berry is unchanged, I take it, because, the threat to break up his or his financial ecosystem that he has developed here with the Cleveland Browns was the Myles Garrett trade, and he managed his way out of that. So here we are. So I expect we continue to try to restructure and push money into rollover cap, right? Is that still the strategy? And is there any more guys to restructure?
Yep. So nothing's sort of changing. They've got 16.9 million of cap space as we stand. They've got Denzel Ward's deal, which is going to get restructured at some point, along with Ethan Pochich. So they don't have to negotiate with the players. They just literally send it into the league office. Hey, we're restructuring these. So those 2 players will get done, which will create some more cap space. I'd expect that probably around late August. So it's one that there's no rush to do it now. They'll wait. And part of the reason why you leave it so late, you don't want to open up another 5-6 mil of cap space, probably more than that, because then it looks like you're going to do something. If suddenly we've got 27 million of cap space, 30 million of cap space, you can't plead poverty as much in negotiations. So it's leave it to the last minute, then do it. The one interesting one is what do they do with Greg Newsome? He is due 13.377 million this year. Where he hasn't signed a Cleveland Browns contract, because he's only signed the rookie standard deal, the Browns can't just go, hey, we're going to restructure this. They can go to him. Jedrick Wills was happy to restructure, his camp was. So it's one that they could certainly have that agreement and get it done. But at the same time, it's probably unlikely because his agent's going to go, I want to be extended. I don't want to help you have 1 year. I want a long-term future. So it's one that probably not going to happen, but one to certainly keep an eye on.
Explain how that impacts his ability to be extended.
It won't impact his ability to get extended. It's just him saying the only leverage he's got is, hey, if you want to get my cap number down, give me a long-term deal, rather than going
down. I got you. Yeah. That makes sense.
And the other contract just to keep an eye on you've got is Alex Wright, who we touched on earlier, 3.4 million. If you negotiate that down, maybe he gets paid 2 million this year because you want to keep him. You can bring that number down and make it a bit of a signing bonus.
You think that happens if he's on the roster?
I would be shocked if he plays on the 53-man roster with a 3.4 million contract. It's either one of 2 things. He's gone or he negotiates a lower deal. Who knows? It could be 2 million with 1.5 million guaranteed. It could be all 2 million guaranteed. There's lots of different options.
As always, Jack, fantastic. A to Z. Everything I wanted to know, you answered it, man. And your time, I know, is precious. So I thank you for carving out a little bit for us here at Things I Think I Know. And, of course, the OBR Streaming Network, our resident capologist, Jack Duffin. Thank you again, sir. Any parting words for our listeners today?
Just have an amazing weekend, guys. Enjoy it because, hey, this is another weekend coming up where the Browns can't lose.
Yep, can't lose. Don't do anything dumb. Be safe. For Jack Duffin and everybody at the OBR, my name is Brad Ward. This has been another edition of Things I Think I Know. We are out.